Hi there. My name is Anne McKenna, and today my husband Steve is joining us um, for our first live chat together this year in 2023. We have done others previously, but this is our first one together in 2023. So, welcome and please share this. This is something we will be doing ongoing just as we try to figure out what's working for our schedules and everything else that is going on in our lives. But we love coming and sharing with you. So share this. And I'm just going to invite my husband to open for us with a reading, and then we can go from there.
All right. Hello, everyone. Let's read from the book of James, chapter 1, verses 19 through 25. So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore lay aside all filthiness and overflow of wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in the mirror, for he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was. But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this one will be blessed with what he does.
Thank you. So today we wanted to start off with communication, and we will be speaking about other subjects as we speak on relationships. Um, that's our passion is relationships, especially family, marriages. So we want to start with communication because communication is at the center of almost everything that we do um, when we think of relationships.
It really is the foundation, because if you can't communicate, um, or if you're communicating ineffectively, there's nothing to build on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and like many subjects, we could classes are taught on communication,
Mm-hmm.
but we're just going to take a quick view of it, using the scripture as our guide, and pointing those things out. So
Yeah. So, I mean, James, I think one of the greatest thing about human beings is that we love to talk. We love to talk. And from what the Bible says in James and in many other verses of the Bible, there is so much value in listening. Um, Somebody said there is a reason God created us with one mouth and 2 ears and 2 eyes. So we're supposed to listen more than we speak. And when we speak, we're supposed to be careful what we say. The Bible says over and over in so many scriptures that we need to really be careful about what comes out of our mouths, the things that we say. Um,
and although you just said mouths, I do realize what you said is why we have one mouth, 2 ears, but also 2 eyes.
and 2 eyes.
Yes,
Yes,
because
two
two
eyes.
eyes is also a big part of communication.
Right, right. Yeah, and so I like some of the things that James talk about here is when it comes to our communication, we need to think about how God sees us as we communicate. we should be concerned about what we are portraying before our Father in heaven. And the reason we chose this subject for our beginning this year in communication and in family systems is because the culture today has become more and more deceiving. There is so much deception going on. And in fact, we are being trained into deception, right?
Yeah, it's there's such a focus on everyone's had the conversation where they've talked to somebody and someone has said something to them, and the face value of the words are one thing, but you go and you walk away and you realize the very opposite is what took place. And I think that is really what our culture is building on,
Mm-hmm.
is that deception of, well, if you use this word,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't be held accountable of doing something bad. And really, words are such a small part of the communication.
Right, right. Because communication is, we have different types of communication, we have different elements of communication. And basically, communication is the impartation or exchange of information or news. So, anytime we are communicating, you are passing on information one way or the other, no matter which mode element of communication you are doing. You are imparting information, you are exchanging information, even without words.
An idea, an emotion, a
An
feeling,
emotion, feelings,
facts. I mean, it can all
facts,
be different things that you're exchanging.
right? So um, there's basically three types of communication. There is the word of mouth, the words that we speak to one another. So, like right now, we're communicating using our words. And then there's the written communication, whereby you can write a message to somebody else and they can read it and you communicated. And then there is other modes. There is the non-verbal communication. So there's the verbal, there's the written, and then there's the non-verbal communication. And we'll talk more about that. But the most, when it comes to the types, the most effective is the talking, when people talk to each other, because with with the writing, there can be a lot of misinterpretation of what is written. So anytime that you can verbally speak to somebody, it's the best way to communicate, because as we shall see in the elements of communication, when you talk to people, they can see you, they can see your body language, they can hear the tone of your voice, and you might write something that is misinterpreted to mean something different. But when you speak to somebody, there is clarity. There's more clarity because you can read the other forms of communication.
It's actually kind of like a picture is worth a thousand words.
Right.
There are so much texture, so much context that's involved in communication beyond the actual word that you're using.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's experienced it when you're trying to communicate a lot of times at work now in emails and texts versus a phone call or a conversation. How many times have you been very frustrated because the wrong message was communicated?
Yes.
And I think that's something everybody can relate to that's working nowadays. Is
Mm-hmm.
that's an obstacle that we sometimes you just got to pick up the phone or walk down the hall and say, "Hey, this is what I'm saying,"
Mm-hmm.
and it goes much better and much quicker.
Yeah. So then, according to the to psychology, this Professor Albert Mehrabian, um, he came up with, he wrote the book Silent Messages. And as we were saying, silence speaks. Silence is very loud. He came up with the elements of communication, which is 7% of the communication is through the spoken word. So this is now when it comes to being in the same space with people, you're communicating every step along the way. There is the 7%, which is the spoken words, and then the 38% goes with the tone of the voice that you are speaking with. And then there's the 55%, which is the body language.
So 7% is actually your choice of words that you're using.
Right, right. So the reason this is important for us to look into, there is also, just before I go to that, the 80-20 communication rule that says that 80% of our communication should be listening, and 20% is what we speak. So when we meet new people, when we are trying to sell an idea, all these things, the most effective way to capture people is to listen to them. So 80% goes to listening. When people come to you and tell you what their problems are, they are not so quickly looking for a lecture. They are not saying, tell me what to do, tell me everything that you have learned in school, teach me. Mostly they want you to listen to where they are coming from. And the most effective way is to listen and help them process their own journey. Not so much tell them what to do, because when you tell people what to do, it's very frustrating because sometimes they have tried everything that you are telling them. They know everything you are telling them. So the most important thing is really helping them process where they are and where they can go. So the 80-20% rule is really important.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think men, we're probably the most guilty of always wanting to have a solution to offer. But in that same context, you got to remember and train yourself as a solution. What means more, what conveys the message the most? When I tell my wife that I care about her or love her, or when I take the time to actually look into her eyes and listen, to close my mouth and listen to how she's feeling or what's going on in her mind right now. And they're very different things. And you want to be direct and say something, but the communication is not just of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You are the sender of communication, but you have to also concentrate on the receiver. Because if the receiver doesn't receive the communication that you're trying to present, your communication has ended.
It has ended, and you're boring them because you know hey, um I went to the store and I could not find olive oil. And, for example, Steve starts saying, well, did you look in this aisle? Did you look? Or maybe this is where to go find olive oil, instead of saying, where did you look? What aisle did you go to? Because a lot of times they have gone through a lot of things before they came to you. So it's important to understand, where are they coming from? What have they tried? You know, what does that person know before you start solving their problems? So the 80-20 rule is really important. But the reason we were looking at the elements is, again, living in a culture that is being trained really to lose heart in that we don't care very much anymore about relationships or about how we hurt people or how we affect people. What we care the most is about whether they can prove it or not.
The legal aspect.
The
of it.
legal
Can
aspect.
someone charge me with something rather than am I doing?
Am I being authentic?
Am I being authentic? Yes.
Am I being real?
Yeah.
But it's more, like Paul was speaking to Galatians, and he says to them, "Oh, you foolish Galatians, thinking that you are wise, but indeed you are foolish in your deeds. Because they were people of education and learning, and they wanted to be at the top of their education. We are learned, we are educated. And that's the culture we live in. Like psychology comes up with all these ways. Mostly it's the sales mentality. We live in a very materialistic and what's the word I'm looking for? Consumer, a very consumer society. So it's more about selling. We want to sell. We want to sell. How can we catch people's minds? How can we catch people's hearts? And we study psychology. We are taught psychology on how to communicate, on how, and so we are concerned about knowledge. We want to learn. And we are not as concerned about what the word of God says, about the fear of God in our communication, because we learn. We are so much told, say the right thing. Say what won't be used against you. Just say what's right. So any communication that we convey that is nonverbal, we are told in our culture today, it's irrelevant. And so, as Christian believers, I think the saddest thing is when you see Christians um, act one way. It's all about the words. So, like we were saying, communication 50, 55% is body language. So I don't have to tell my husband I'm upset at him some days. He can read it. If I'm mad at him,
I can walk in the room and go, uh-oh.
and go, trouble.
Yeah.
Before,
And she hasn't said a word.
and hi honey, how are you? Fine. The tone of voice.
Yeah.
But
she said she's fine.
Yeah, I said the right words, but the tone of voice, and more than anything, before I even spoke a word, my husband can look at me and go, what's going on? Things are not right today, because we communicate. Even in our silence, we communicate. So, as a couple, we have to be aware of that. It's not that we cannot be mad at each other. It's not that we cannot be upset, because we are human. And God gave us all emotions for a reason, whether it's the anger, whether it's the fear, all the emotions that God put in us, He put them there for a reason. And they speak to us and they protect us. And we need all the feelings that God made us to have. It's more about how we manage them. How we manage our feelings is the important thing according to the Bible. And so, we go with our kids, they can tell when there's stress and they get stressed out. Even if we don't tell them that we are stressed, they can tell.
They can pick up on the tenseness of the face, the tone of the language, the stiffness of our movements, the coldness,
the
atmosphere. And we can't forget, we are spiritual beings as well.
That's the biggest one. We are spiritual beings. So we do this communication all the time with our families. Now, our families, we have relationships. And so if I come in and Steve goes, what's wrong? We can communicate. We can talk. Or maybe the kids, what's going on? Mom, I sense this. Mom, I see this. We can talk about it. Now, the people that are not within your family, whether it's at your workplace, where you go to work every day, whether it's at church and in other places that you communicate with people, is that we are always communicating. Now, we are not required to like every person that you meet. The Bible doesn't.
Nor can we.
Neither can we. The Bible doesn't tell us to like everybody. The command is love everybody. And that can be confusing because sometimes people, um, yeah, amen. Sometimes people feel guilty when they don't feel the liking feeling of some people. But God made us that way.
Yeah.
We don't have to like everybody, but we are called to love everybody because love is a choice and love is an action. So we choose the action of love, even for the people that we don't like, because the liking is the natural part of
Yeah,
humanity.
and it's easy to love someone if you like them,
Yeah,
and it's much harder to love someone if you don't
if
like
you
them.
don't like them.
It's yeah, so it's kind of, that is the protection in that
Hmm.
command. So,
But you love with boundaries. You love people and you still have boundaries because we also have to protect ourselves. We are not called to like everybody, but we are called to love everybody.
and
So,
we need to have boundaries because we need protection.
right. So, praying for people, keeping your heart pure before God, is you're constantly reflecting and giving things to God. It's okay if you don't feel the liking, but pray for the people and don't set people up just because you don't like them. So, in our culture today, one of the things that we observe so much is I don't like that person. I don't want to be around that person. And so we manipulate the system, and then, people can tell if we don't like them. People know
No
when we
matter
don't,
what you
no matter
say,
what you say, if you don't like me, I know. And what we say is, oh, she's judging me.
and remember what, 7% is what we say, 38 is the tone of saying it, and 55 is your body language.
It's the body language.
So when someone comes up and says nice things, or the right things to say, that's only 7%.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not fooling anyone
You are
when you're
not
doing that.
fooling. So it's just best to be real because nobody, I mean, hopefully, nobody should care whether you like them or not because it really doesn't matter because you focus on the people who love you, people who like you, people that God has called into your life, which is not everybody. So it's okay to be real instead of setting people up. So Steve comes and he senses that I don't like him. I don't want to be around him. And maybe somebody invites him to my presence and he goes, well, I don't want to go because I know Anne doesn't like me. And I go, he is so judgmental. He is so he's offended for whatever reason. And now I'm turning him to be the bad person for saying that I know that Anne don't like me, so I don't want to go because I know I'm not welcome. And so he turns it around that I'm the bad person for knowing that he doesn't like me. Well, there's nothing wrong with Steve not liking me. If you don't like me, it's okay. So let's be real and not set up other people because we want to look a certain way. It's all communication. And at the end of the day, you can destroy people. It's what the Bible talks of wickedness, slandering, not being honest with ourselves in our communication, setting other people up so that we can look better and put other people down. It's all communication. And it hurts worse when we do that to people, especially as believers. When you do that to people, you turn off people from Christianity, from wanting to follow Jesus because they can read these things. Um, there's a difference between judgment and discernment. God calls us not to judge, but He calls us to be discerning. Be discerning. Know the spirit behind the person. Know the spirit behind the situation. Be discerning. So we are going to be discerning. Therefore, how we communicate to others or whatever presence we bring in our place is real. It's real. So we need to be mindful of that.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, more and more we see the culture is putting the focus on that 7%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go to advertisers, the people in the business, they know that the 38 and the 55% exists, and they present things that way.
Mm-hmm.
But in our everyday lives, it's inverse to what it really is. They're saying, well, I said this. These are the words I said. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't say anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Although every person in the room might have said, no, that's not the message that they sent at all.
Right.
And I just see it more and more every day that we're using those principles in the inverse way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is evil. That is
It is
exactly the
weekend.
definition, the
Mm-hmm.
wickedness.
The Bible calls it weekend. So, the people are more and more getting to under the skin, what Americans say, getting under the skin. It's doing things to people that cannot be named. By the way, it's abuse.
It's being slippery.
Yeah, being slippery. You do things to people that cannot be proved, but you know that you are damaging them. You are damaging another person.
And again, I want to go back. 7% is the words
It's
you
the
use.
words.
And that's what they're going to use for their defense.
Yes.
The 7%. But what is communicated is the other 93%.
Mm-hmm.
You don't deny yourself. You know that 93% of what's being said is truthful.
It's truthful. Yeah. So really, with the message that we are trying to convey today is really the fear of God in our communication. The fear of God, knowing that at the end of the day, God is looking at our hearts and our minds. He knows what's going on there. And the Bible also says, do not cause the little ones to stumble. Don't cause people to stumble. So when we use our communication mindlessly and afflict other people, we are causing them to stumble, and we shall be answerable for it. So whatever way that we communicate to people without words, like Professor Albert says, 55% the body language. If you enter a room and you find somebody sitting in that room, right from within the first 7 seconds, they have communicated so much to you just by entering that space. You have learned so much within those first 7 minutes. So communication is very powerful, whether we are speaking or not. And actually, what is not spoken is more powerful. And then we gotta remember our eyes are the window to the soul. When you look at people's eyes, even as you pass by or as they pass by you, the way they look at you,
or the way they avoid the eye contact.
They avoid eye contact. They see you, they turn the other way. They were coming this direction. They see you, they turn to the other direction. All these are forms of communication. You're communicating to people, you're destroying somebody, and you can say, I didn't say that. All you want, you said it.
Yeah.
You said it. So we need to be more reflective on our heart and how we are affecting other people with our communication, especially the nonverbal or the tone, the unspoken, the silent, what did he say? The silent messages. Silence speaks. So we need to be.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, because silence is powerful. It's powerful in many ways. As a counselor, well-chosen silence is oftentimes your most powerful mechanism to cause a change or to pull something out or to convey something. People are naturally uncomfortable in silence.
Yeah.
But because we like noise, we like distraction, we like to talk. I think that also is a evident of we are uncomfortable without trying to project ourselves some way.
Mm-hmm.
We're uncomfortable being true. Just,
Yeah.
just I'm here. I'm present.
Mm-hmm.
This is me. Um,
Noise keeps us from going deep, from viewing ourselves, from being real with ourselves, because sometimes we can't face ourselves. And so it's better to be distracted in all ways. But
and I think one of the things I really love about being a chaplain now
mm-hmm.
is that call to presence.
Oh yeah.
Just your, um, going to school for psychology and counseling, marriage and family therapy. I knew these things,
Mm-hmm.
but until you start working in the field and you start to realize um, how powerful it is. Once you start, and that's why what I'm asking people to do is look at yourself in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
reflect on yourself, because that's what it took me many times. Is I am projecting something that I know I shouldn't be bringing into this room.
Mm-hmm.
These people are hurting and they're in this needy place or wherever, and I'm projecting something that I know is wrong because I'm not paying attention to myself. And that's why it's so to be internal and reflective of ourselves, how we are feeling and how we present that is something that's very important
Mm-hmm.
because people will pick up on it.
And sometimes, whether it's at our places of work or churches or schools, it's just sad, especially when Christians go in these places and somebody doesn't like you. So they're gonna do everything they can to destroy you, to push you out of the place because they don't like you. And it's like we feel like I'm more entitled being here, and because I don't like this person, they need to leave because I don't like them. And we do all these nonverbal communications and things just to push other people out. It's all communication. And for for me to feel like I'm entitled to be in a place more than another person and do all this, it's wickedness. To push another person away, it's wickedness. So really, the thing is facing ourselves and saying, what is just? What is just? If I came here to work and another person came here to work, we are all here to use our gifts and at the same time to feed our families. So if I don't like Steve, I'm gonna work on that side and let them work on the other side. But when we decide in ourselves, I'm more entitled to be here than Steve, it's wickedness. But we are seeing this, there's just so much deception in our culture, and it's all about just say the right thing and cover yourself up. And it just seems to be like that's the message. Let's be legal. Let's think about court. Let's think about how we won't be sued. It's all we think about. We don't think about how are we affecting this person's life? What are we doing to this person specifically? We want to impress the people that are important in our eyes. Like Jesus was giving the parable of the rich man who comes and the poor man, and the host takes the rich person and runs them to the front to the best seat, sits them there, takes the poor person and sits them way, don't even come into the house, sit in the yard. And we behave like that with our communication. Is we want to impress the people that we think matter to us. And the people that don't matter to us, we can throw them out in the yard. But God sees all these things. So creating that purity of heart wherever we are, knowing that people are reading us, even without speaking words, people are reading us, and being fearful before God in that He says, do not cause other people to stumble. Now, I know there's so many messages out there about being offended, don't be offended, and all that. The Bible calls us to not cause offense at the same time. So they go together. Don't offend people. It's also a call of Jesus Christ. So we need to be very aware of our communication. What are we giving to people? How are we affecting people? Should be at the core of our heart, when we move out, like James says, be slow to speak, you know, be quick to listen and observe with our eyes. Observe. What are you seeing? What are you reading? Because all those things are going to inform you.
Yeah, and that's another trait that I've picked up on
Yeah.
is when you enter a place, what do you start paying attention? You don't come in and just start yapping. You walk in and you look at people. You look around. You see how people are communicating, how they're not communicating, what their facial expressions are. Are they looking away from you? Are they looking towards you? I mean, all these things. When you start practicing these, you really your whole world starts to really come alive when you start paying attention. And I think, again, going back to our culture, I think there's such an emphasis of trying to get people to not pay attention to those things. And when we look at the Bible, it says, no, I put those into you. That is what you need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, it's the deception.
It is
The deception of this world saying, no, only the 7% matters.
7%, just the spoken ones. If I say I love you, and I don't mean it,
I love you.
Is that's all what should matter? Is he said he loves me. It doesn't matter the spirit behind it.
Or annoyed. My wife might have said to me, "Oh, you never say I love you." So every morning I wake up very annoyed. I love you.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm saying it every day, but guess what? The only message is you're annoyed by me. You're annoyed by me.
Yeah.
And that's a very simplistic view of what we're trying to, or example of what we're saying. But that's how powerful it is.
Yeah. Just don't say it just because somebody said you say it. Say it if you mean it.
And if you don't say it.
And if you don't mean it, don't say it. So communication is very powerful. Our words are only 7%. The tone of the voice, the body language is the most. So we are always speaking, even when we are not using any words. And so when
I'm sorry. We also got to realize we are relational beings. And although we think maybe we can control how we look in our deception, but you got to realize you've had conversations and you're speaking to other people as well. All those are relationships that you affect, whether you tell them something or they pick up on you when your guard is down on your truthfulness. So it's your communication of what you're doing isn't reflected just on yourself either. It's also shown in other people around you.
Yeah.
And you really look at that when you look at families and relationships of
family
units.
dynamics. Yeah. I think that's a good one. That's a good one because
it's one of the most powerfully revealing aspects of what people pick up on.
Yeah.
So
yeah. As a parent, as a wife, just being aware, your vibes transfer in your home. So those are incentives for us to work on ourselves. What's going on inside me that is dragging me down and now dragging my entire family down because there's some work that I have not done on myself. Communication, they can pick up, they can feel it. And so if I don't work on myself, I'm not only dragging myself down, I'm dragging my entire family. and I can't hide it from them. I can't pretend it. So we have to continuously do our inner work in order to present ourselves the way God calls us to present ourselves.
Don't do what's natural. Defend yourself. Try to help heal yourself.
Yes.
That's one of the things I look at as being reflective. It is when you feel that nudge or that urge to defend yourself, start looking inside and start healing yourself.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us with communication. Yeah, we're still looking at our schedules. So I'm back to school and I'm really enjoying school. Just wanting to graduate hopefully in 3 years or less. And Steve is also hoping to start
I'm starting
in September, right?
Yes.
In September. So we're both wanting to complete our doctorate program so that we can serve God in the ways that He has called us. So we are really excited about this. Our house is full of students. Nate is in college, studies in standard 7. So a lot of students in the house. And just navigating everything else in life. So we are looking for a day that my husband and I commit. I mean, I do random live chats, but because of our schedules, we are trying to coordinate a day for sure that we can say, this is the day of the week that we shall be doing this live chat together like we have done in the past. I think the most recent we were doing on Wednesdays. And I don't think that Wednesday is going to work this time round. Anyway, we'll figure it out. We will let you know. For now, we're just going to go random, maybe next Sunday night, and then maybe we'll have a day that we can put out there and say, this is the day that you can join us. And for those that are new, those that have not seen us together and doing this, I had a page that got deleted last year during my desert moments. I what do you call it, deactivated my Facebook and they deleted my page that I had built over years. So we're starting. So we're not new to this. For those who haven't seen us, we are not new to this. It's just that this page is new. So you are welcome. Please join us, stay with us. We're back. God bless you and God bless your families.
Bye.